Good afternoon. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook from the 17th floor of the Windsor Oceanica Hotel here in Barra da Tijuca, which is just to the west of the city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. I'm meant to actually be home, but my wife and I were about to board the flight last night, and we were told that the flight was cancelled. So lo and behold, we were put up in this rather nice hotel, I must admit, here in the west side of Rio, west kind of southwest of the city. Full board, quite luxurious, I must admit. It is a nicer hotel than what we stayed in Copacabana, I must admit. But nonetheless, we've extended our holiday essentially by about 24 hours. The slight downside is that we had to queue up for a very long period of time. We were essentially kind of standing around and hanging about, waiting both for information, then waiting for a taxi. About an hour's drive from the airport to here. Then we had probably about another hour to wait before we actually managed to get checked in last night. So I had a buffet dinner, a few hours kept. Then we had a nice breakfast this morning. So it has been a rather interesting end to our trip to Brazil, I must admit. But nonetheless, we are still here and aiming to get away the back of 7 this evening. It was actually due to pilot illness last night, I believe, that cancelled the flight. I've heard a couple of other rumours saying that the flight was only about half full and they simply won't fly with a half full plane from, for an 11-hour journey. So, take the information as it is, and there is conflicting reports with regards to why we didn't fly last night. But British Airways, nonetheless, have said that it was due to a pilot becoming unwell and unfit to fly. That has been the reason behind the cancellation. But I must admit, there is worse places to stay, I must admit, for an extra 24 hours on a trip to Brazil. So anyway, we've got obviously Hurricane Ernesto. You can see here, based on the latest GOES 16 infrared, that Ernesto is starting to become a little bit more consolidated. The convection is becoming more wrapped around a center. We are expecting to see atmospheric conditions improve. So therefore, this system should become top-end Category 2, if not Category 3 hurricane before it makes a close call on Bermuda. Whether it goes directly over Bermuda or it is a side swipe, it is nonetheless going to be an impactful system to the island of Bermuda. And then going beyond that, it looks as if we are going to see the system take a run at the maritime region of Canada, whether it be Nova Scotia. It looks as if a lot of the models are kind of taking the system to the east of Nova Scotia, but making a glancing blow, if not a landfall, on the far eastern side of Newfoundland before taking a run at the UK. That would be later next week if we do see an impact. But this is the latest GFS ensembles of tropical tidbits showing this system clearing out of far eastern Canada across the Atlantic, and then kind of becoming extra tropical. The dynamics within the system changes from a warm core to a cold core. Baroclinicity takes over. We see a likely weakening, then strengthening of the circulation again as a cold core baroclinic low pressure system that then makes an approach at the UK and Ireland here. But if you watched yesterday's video, I did allude to the fact that this is likely to deepen the trough over the northeastern Atlantic, and therefore it's going to kind of reinforce the westerly, unsettled theme that we've got going across the west of Europe at this moment in time. But it's been a very, very active time over Western Europe in particular. Some interesting tweets coming out of parts of the Balearics, for example. I wanted to also talk about a Typhoon Ampel, which is expected to approach the greater Tokyo area. So we're moving over to the Pacific here. It is expected to deepen to 945 millibars and could be one of the strongest typhoons to approach the region of Tokyo. Bear in mind, there's 37 million people. It is the largest population of a city anywhere on the planet, and it is likely to have significant impacts in terms of wind and rain. So Sayaka Mori, a meteorologist based in Tokyo in Japan, showing this tweet here, suggesting that even without a direct landfall, it will have significant impacts on the greater Tokyo area and adjacent area. Very, very highly populated area. It's going to make big impacts. But moving across to Europe once again, and we've seen some very significant weather taking place. By the way, this was the scene in St. Martin in the Caribbean due to tropical storm Ernesto. This was, I think, yesterday. So moving forward here, we have had a lot of significant rain, but not only just rain, but we've also had significant wildfires in and around the Madeira area. So you can see here, this is from Madeira, I believe yesterday. So not that far from populated areas. Obviously, it's a relatively small island, and the wildfire situation, obviously, there is something that needs to be monitored. This was the scene, by the way, in Mallorca. This is a tweet by Volcanic a little earlier, showing the flash flooding. So major thunderstorms erupted over the western side of the Mediterranean basin, and as a result, we've seen some significant flooding here. Lightning, hail, damaging winds has been the story. This was actually in Murcia in Spain, a possible tornado crossing this road here in southeastern Spain. So you can hear a lot of helicopter activity in the background. It's actually quite interesting because this hotel appears to be functioning some of the meetings with regards to the G20. So the G20 at the moment, I'm sure you're aware of, is in Rio, and this hotel here in the west and southwest side of Rio is actually facilitating some of the meetings, and I think some folks are staying here in the hotel as well. This was also the scene in Murcia due to the flooding. So yeah, some quite nasty conditions, especially if you're holidaying in this region at the moment. And this is the scene from off Formentera. So certainly it is quite it's been quite a busy spell with regards to weather over Iberia and the Balearics in recent times, and this is the helicopter activity that was around about 8 o'clock this morning here local time. I think that's a lot of that's associated with the G20. A lot of activity in general in this area with helicopters. In fact, incidentally, the helicopter ride that my wife and I took back last Friday was from about 20 minutes ago, 20 minutes away down the road here. That's where we took off from. So anyway, let's have a look and see what else is cooking today. Now, the video that I released that was meant to be for today is actually going to be released tomorrow, because we're going to be traveling, all being well, tonight into tomorrow. I'm not going to get the chance. I'm going to be too tired to do a video tomorrow. So the video that was meant to be for today will be tomorrow. And it does say, you know, thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of the video. It's meant to be Friday. But this is the GFS overview here for precipitation, cloud, temperature and pressure. And you can see here, this is Ernesto. There's the main ridge of high pressure at the moment is generally further east over the central Atlantic towards the Azores. You notice here we don't have the Bermuda High particularly prominent at the moment, certainly at the surface, but also the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That's going to change likely as Ernesto rounds the western side of the high, moves and clips Canada, moves across the North Atlantic. I would expect to see this ridge over the eastern side of the subtropical Atlantic to push westwards and therefore start to deepen the trough between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK and Ireland here. But notice here at the moment, as of Thursday, 9 o'clock UTC, we've got quite a westerly flow. Wet start to the day across northwestern England, Wales, southern and central Scotland here. We have that main feature running through that I'd alluded to yesterday. That's now clearing eastwards, and then essentially we're left with a legacy of westerly showers blowing in off the Atlantic here. Somebody had said, is the heavy rain and thunderstorms that we're seeing over Central and Western Europe going to come towards the UK? It's been quite dry across the southeast of the UK. Any rain that we get over the next week or so is going to be primarily from the Atlantic, so from the west, not from Europe. But if we play it through this loop, you can see here there's Ernesto running that weakness on the western side of the mid-Atlantic ridge. This latest run of the GFS has the system staying generally to the east of Nova Scotia, then it clips the eastern side of Newfoundland, reaches the top, catches up with the jet stream roaring off at Canada here on the northern flank of the high. Then it's expected to move eastwards, re-deepening, re-intensifying as a paraclinic area of low pressure as opposed to a warm core tropical system. Then it makes an approach in the UK and Ireland here towards this day next week, so Thursday the 22nd of August. And I think essentially it just reinvigorates this pattern that we've seen all along. If anything, we're going to have less ridging to the south and more in the way of troughiness that's kind of generally been focused over the northern UK. It's going to be more encompassing the majority of the UK and Ireland towards the middle and second half of next week. So this latest run of the GFS sees the system moving from west to east, the remnants of Hurricane Ernesto. Then it's followed by another feature, if you notice here, that kind of dumbbells in off the Atlantic, coming out of the north, swings through, and essentially that's going to kind of reinvigorate the kind of Atlantic-driven dominance that we've seen through the majority of August, especially the further north you go. Let's finally have a look at a couple of other factors here to consider. So let's look at the CFS V2. In fact, let's have a look at the GFS, in fact, and see what it's indicating here for next week in particular. So you can see here, if we play the increments here, just the kind of daily increments, you can see here the trough to the north, high to the south. There's that cut-off area of low pressure that delivered all the thunderstorms, the flash flooding, the damaging wind gusts, etc., etc. That feature then you can see here in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Then you notice here that we continue with this kind of south ridge, trough, north situation. And as we go through next week, the trough, with the help of Ernesto, becomes deeper and more dominant over the UK and Ireland here towards the second half of next week here. Looking at the temperature anomalies real quick here, and we'll finish off with this. For the upcoming 5 days, it looks like this here. It is generally cooler than average with the exceptions of the southeast. The day 6 to 10 looks like this here. This takes out to the 25th of August here. Generally average to below average temperature anomalies here. Then the 11 to 15, again, similar idea. This takes out to the final day or two of August here. So sitting on the 17th floor of the Windsor Oceanica in Baratajuka. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be back again with the preloaded video that was meant to be for today. That will be released tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.